Hi everybody, this is Let's Play 2025 June week 2, and I start this week pretty much where I ended last week. The only difference is I have actually done the blind stitching around the curve of the background, and I am going to do some quilting, and I'm going to do some embroidery, but I'm not going to take the time to do all the embroidery because I'll get my drawing out here. As you can see, once I add the circles, there will be very little of it showing, so it's kind of just a waste to stitch all the stuff that's going to be behind the circles. So I actually think I'll wait to do the embroidery that I'm just going to do along the edge here. I haven't completely decided on the stitch yet. And I'm not going to, like I just said, I'm not going to do it around the whole thing, but it'll look like it's around the whole thing if I do it just between the circles. And X's, maybe that variation on a back stitch that I like, that I've started using with the up and down, or maybe even a feather stitch. That might also be pretty. I haven't decided that yet, but I do think I'm going to do it in a darker green, a kind of green. All right, I will get started and I'll be back to share progress. I got the quilting complete. I love grid quilting. And grid quilting on something like a plaid or a polka dot with a regular spaced dot is so easy. You can see here I use the plaid and I just quilted down one every other light one, and it's just easy. I love painter's tape because it doesn't stick very much. There's no residual glue on the back, where masking tape, a long time ago, you used to be suggested to use masking tape. It does leave some residual, so the painter's tape is better. And you just take yourself a strip of painter's tape, you put it across the grid of whatever you want to quilt, like so. Pretend this isn't quilted. And then you just use the edge of the painter's tape to sort of stitch along. It just makes it so simple, no stress, no marking. I think you might be able to tell I don't really like marking my fabric. Okay, so I did the grid squares on the yellow, and I did the diagonal squares on this light green, just for change, just to give it a bit of a texture change. And I am very pleased with how that whole background has a texture to it now, I guess is the way to put it. Next, I cut out myself some circles from my templates, and how I did that, I'll share that. Here's another tip of mine. If I draw on fabric, I love to use this homemade mat I made. This is fine sandpaper on some cardboard, and I just taped around the edges to keep it there. This is a place where masking tape is better. As you can see, my painter's tape keeps coming up. Anyways, so you put your fabric down on the, and it doesn't move around. So when you draw whatever you want to draw on it, it stays in place. So then I use a mechanical pencil, and the reason I say mechanical pencil over other pencils is the lead is so fine that you don't have a thick line. You have a very nice thin line. You draw yourself a circle on the back of your fabric, tracing your template. And then you cut that out. Now, I made a little video, a couple of 40-second video of how a tip I have about cutting out, a basic tip about cutting out. So I'm going to insert that here, instead of showing you me cutting this one out. It seems like basic helpful information, but I don't remember being taught this when I was first taught how to use scissors. So I thought maybe you weren't either, and I'd share. You get a much nicer cut if you move the thing you're cutting and keep your scissors steady, as opposed to moving your scissors. You just keeping the scissors straight and moving the item that you need to cut out. Makes it a steadier flow. I hope that's helpful. Okay, all my circles are cut out, and I'm going to base them on the back of the background, and I'm gonna put, if you remember my drawing, all along the edge of where these two patches meet. This is one of my circles. It's a little tiny doily I had in my collection, which I love. So let's go there, and one there, and the final one there. And I will base these down, and then I'm going to do a stitch around the edge of each of them before I add the motif to the middle of them, or whatever I'm going to add to the middle of them. I know what I'm going to add here and here. I don't think I know what I'm going to add there. Now, I was thinking about this design and how much space there is here and what I could add, and I went back to my traditional rectangles and that, but didn't like that idea. And then, you won't be surprised, thinking of it while I was sleeping last night, it occurred to me, they don't have to be, see, if I had put a circle there, I don't think I would have, a full circle, I don't think I would have liked it. It would have, why wasn't this extended over, or something to that effect. But what I realized is I could add a partial circle, so that's what I've cut myself for these areas. So I'm going to have that one there and this one here, approximately. And I really like the no straight edges. It suits the circle thing. So I will base those down too, and I will be adding something to them as well. All right, I'll be back when I've done the basting and probably some stitching. I'm almost completely finished my stitching, but here's where it is so far. Isn't that turning out so interesting? I think so. Okay, I'll bring it up and show you what I did. I've got just a running stitch around this one, feather stitch here. I've stitched down my doily. In the center of the doily, I did put a circle of dark yellow fabric. I stitched this trim on around the edge of this partial circle. Dash and dot here. It's not very visible, but they're actually two different colors of embroidery floss. One's lighter than the other. I love dash and dot. I've used it now a couple of times. One on my bits and bobs, which is where I really fell in love with it. Here's a chain stitch all the way around. Sorry about the lighting. Not the sunniest day, but I needed to get the video out. I did the X's along the wave where it shows. And then for this final piece, I kind of wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do for a while. I thought maybe herringbone. But what I ended up doing is something called threaded back stitch. And it's, so the green is the back stitch that I did, and I think it looks lovely in pearl cotton in this case. I'm a big embroidery floss girl, but with this stitch, there's something about it that, because of the looping and everything, pearl cotton just shines in this one. So then I came out here with the dark yellow, and I looped it in under the back stitch. Every back stitch I either looped from over or under, and I looped it over. And here's what that looks like. I'll turn it the other way. it's very pretty. And I almost considered just leaving that like that because I really liked that. But then I decided to go with my first plan and use a lighter yellow pearl cotton to go the opposite looping. So where there was a dark yellow under, there's a light yellow over. And again, not going into the fabric, just through the under the stitch. Let's see if I can do this. So my next one, I came over with this light yellow. So using the eye of my needle, I'm going to go, let's see the camera, my shaking isn't helping it focus there. So I'm going to go under the back stitch and the dark yellow stitch with the eye of my needle, and then pull it through, and then you've got a loop, and I'll just continue to do that all the way to the end, and then you get this, which I think is beautiful. Okay, that's the end of this video. Next week we start the embellishing. I'm looking forward to that and adding to these pretty circles. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.